Good morning, puckheads. It's your buddy Chopping On coming at you with a quick video on a slate rundown. You can check my article out on Twitter. Just a slate breakdown. It's the pinned tweet. Run out there, take a look. I don't think I'm going to drop this video in that article, but this is a quick scan of our new research station sheet. I'm going to show you how I use it. I'm going to try and skim the games and not get too deep into any of them, but I want to show you the indicators. If you want to look, you become a VIP, dfsarmy.com, use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 10% savings, and become a VIP, unlock this bad boy, watch this video tutorial that Jim put together for how to use this sheet in his mind, in his creation. I'm doing it a little bit differently, a little more of a macro approach. You can certainly use all of the numbers that he's put up here, but just for the basics, just to show you the sheet and show you how we can use this tool. First of all, it's the second tab down here on the bottom for matchup. Matchups are great. It's the projected lines that were added in that let this thing come out for release. So let's kind of dive in and skim some of these games. Toronto's on the back of it back-to-back. 7 goals, 9 assists for that top line on 66 shots on goals plus blocked shots. This gives you an indicator of the floor of the kind of activity they're running. Obviously, 82 shots and blocks is better than 66 as far as a team that's really pumping them on. 9 and 9 goals and assists you can see are going to produce maybe a little bit better. The more activity you see leads a lot of times to production when you compare those two lines, but either line's running okay. When I'm looking at this, I'm starting to see the benchmark over a 10-game period as being goals and assists of about 20 combined points. You can usually find 4, 5, or 6 teams on a larger slate that get you up to that 20 mark. When you find that 20, now you're going to be looking for who's the softer teams that they're facing. And the softer teams they're facing can be indicated by this plus-minus ratio. Plus-minus is a real fluky stat in NHL. If you're on the ice for a goal, you get a +1. If you're on the ice for a goal against, you get a -1. But what it's going to show you is who the winners and losers are. Who's on the ice when goals are being scored? Who is playing hockey in a fashion that leads to production? And who is really kind of being lazy and who is giving up a lot of goals and kind of sucking it up. Now, you'll find there are nuances in that stat because a team can run relatively neutral. Now, +14 is great because it's telling me that when they've scored 7 goals of their own and they're still a +14, that they're not giving up a lot of goals in return. So pretty decent defensive line. I would look down a little bit lower here at the neutral 0, scored 7 goals, has obviously given up 7 goals as well. Or I guess a few, because you can parlay these together. You know, you get a if you look at the +1s here, you got the -4 and the 2 and 2, so it cancels out. My whole point, to kind of get back on track, my point is you can use that as a brief indicator as to which lines are running well and which lines are running poorly. And you can target the lines that are running poorly when you find goals and assists that kind of bounce up against that 20 mark, okay? So 16's fine. 18's a little better. New York is running hot. I might run Nash as a one-off. I don't know that I would run into Zib or Buchnevich quite yet. I would like to see them work together a little better before I wanted to stack them up. I would include McDonough, honestly, with 2 goals and 4 assists on 27 shots and blocks. That's not a bad one to run with Rick Nash. If you were going to do something, you get a little bit of access to this top line, which isn't great, but you may run against this second line, being that they have home shift advantage. You may run against this second line here and get yourself a little softer defensive matchup, okay? So that's a little bit of how we're going to use that sheet. I'm also going to scroll down and show you what I'm looking for with power play production, because we've broken down both power play units for each team as well. Montreal, there's your 20, 11 goals, 9 assists. They're running hot in their last 10 games. Pacioretty's obviously where you're going to want to do your where you're going to want to put your focus. The second line has been running well too with Drouin and Galchenyuk. So again, with 69 shots and blocks and 62 shots and blocks, you might take the cheaper line here. You're going to run up against a Carolina team that's a little bit softer. If you look at the plus-minus ratio of a 3, a -11 for the defensive pairing, and a -6 on that second line, you don't mind targeting either one of these. So if you've got a team that's running relatively hot with a 15 and a 62 and a 20 and a 69, pick whichever one you want, but get yourself a couple pieces of the Montreal Canadiens tonight, because they're obviously in a decent spot to produce. over the last 10 games, and they're producing in their own right. Now I look at this minus 15 for the second line in Montreal, and it makes me really salivate over taking some Carolina. I would hope that the game planning department in Carolina sees that and wants to use that home shift advantage to target that line with their top scoring line here that has 15 goals and assists, added together in their own production over the last 10 games. But then again, here you go with the second line producing as well with 4 goals and 10 assists of their own over a lot more activity. Okay, so when I'm scrolling down, I may target the power play 2, I may target the power play 1. I don't mind running Aho and Teravainen because a lot of times these two break apart. That's why I like that mini stack so much. When Teravainen's running down here with the 2s and Aho's up here with the 1s, I can run the 2, overlap on the first power play unit, which is producing 5 goals and 8 assists. So that's worth combining the 2 and then spreading out a little bit and attacking hopefully this second line in a decent fashion tonight. So this is actually a game you could stack up both sides tonight. St. Louis and Boston, I don't know. They're getting Schwartz back, so I'm definitely watching the Schenn and Steen combo. 9 goals in their past 10 games, pretty strong. Boston Bruins are missing Marchand up here on the top line. I would think that that's going to really ripple through both of these lines, but the line here, Krejci, DeBrusk, and Spooner is pretty solid. It really is. It's just that St. Louis is a little bit more of a defensive unit, and they're a little more of a goal suppression type of team, and so I do think that gives Boston a downgrade. It's not to say that a team that's running this hot with 16 goals on their top 2 lines in their last 10 games, it's not to say that they can be stopped. It's to say that I don't see the likelihood of them scoring 4 or 5 goals in a game tonight being great. So I don't see myself really getting multiple goals on either of these lines. So it adds a little bit of a risk and takes away from the safety. So I wouldn't run them in cash or safer contests. I'd save them for more of a GPP type pick. Still powerful, still fairly matchup proof, but it's going to be what it's going to be. St. Louis, I don't know, other than watching these guys, what I'm really liking out of this line. I see a lot of neutral. For a defensive team, I see a lot of neutral plus minus, and that's a large part of the fact that they're just not scoring a lot of goals. This is a sign, not a great sign that they've scored 9, but their plus minus together is only a 4. It is what it is. I'm looking down here at the power play. Power play is coming up a little bit. It was a 0-0 a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking down here at 3 and 9, and the first power play unit's not too bad for Boston as well. When I scroll over and take a look at Boston's power play 2, nothing. So I'm not too excited about running the guys with the 2s next to them except for the even strength time, if that makes sense. So scrolling down a little bit more, another thing that we would talk about, and this is what I want to show you. Florida's terrible. -8, -8, 1, -4. They're attackable. I go over here to Buffalo, 6 and 12, 6 and 9. Buffalo's producing, running up against soft offense. Love Buffalo tonight. However, they've broken their power play 1 up across a couple of different lines. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to, again, spread this apart. Look at Eichel and Okposo. If I want to run them together, I'm sort of pigeonholing myself on that top line. And that's great for tournaments. That's not so great for cash. For cash, I'd almost like to spread out a little bit and pick up O'Reilly or Reinhart down here. I mean, they're also producing with a couple of goals in their last 10 games and a few assists as well. So I would rather run, say, an Eichel Reinhart or an Okposo Reinhart or Eichel O'Reilly and then tag them with Ristolainen, who's going to really kind of bring these two lines together. He's got a goal and 5 assists on his own with 27 shots and blocks and a pretty cheap price. If I scroll over and show you the price tags, we already know they're in a good spot, so we don't need to look too much at Florida. We do see some negative or some neutral plus minus, so Florida's in a decent spot if they're producing, but they're not producing like Buffalo is right now. So if I look at, say, Ristolainen, 1 goal, 5 assists, 27 blocks and shots, 4,900 is his price tag over on FanDuel. So what I'd like to see is about 10 points of a floor out of him if possible with upside to more. And without digging specifically into the game logs too hard, I can look really quickly right here at the goals and the assists and the blocked shots and the shots. So if I look at this, is roughly 3 shots or blocks per game. So that's about 4.5 points of a floor right there that I can pretty much count on the average. If I add in 5 assists, and now I've got an assist every other game, That's half an assist per game. Over on FanDuel, 8 point for an assist gives me 4 points per game that I can count on and add into that floor. So 4 plus 4.5 is about 8.5. And now 1 goal in his last 10 games is 10%. That's another 12 points for a goal. That's 1.2 points per game. So if I add in on that 8.5, 1.2, I'm at 9.7. I'm really right there at that 10 mark that I'm looking for in a floor for a 2x value. Ristolainen's a solid play. You want to parlay him up with, say, a Reinert at 4,000. Reinert, 18 shots and blocks per goal. That's about 3 points. That's another 3.5 in terms of assists. So we're at 6.5. But 3 goals is 30% of 12. So that's another 3.5. So I've got 3.5, 3.5, and 3. So that's 7, that's 10. 10 points for 4. So if I wanted to run the value stack, a mini stack of Reinert, Ristolainen, I've got something here. They overlap down here on the power play where they've got a couple of 3 goals and 6 assists between them power play. And I didn't add in power play bonus when I was adding that up. And on even strength, I'm sitting there at a hard floor of about 10 points for each player. So for 4,900 and 4,000, for 8,900 bucks, I've got a pretty decent floor of 20 points with upside for more. That's a good spot, especially when you're running up against a team with a lot of neutral plus-minus ratings. See how we're doing that? Hopefully that makes sense. It's just another way to look at things. There's a billion ways to look at things in the NHL. Scroll down really quick here. Anaheim's okay. Ottawa, bad, 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 bad. So look for production in Anaheim. Philly is on the back-to-back. They look terrible. Their goalie was in bad shape. So that brings me over to New Jersey. I don't mind Taylor Hall. 3 goals, 4 assists, 22 blocks and shots. I run down here and look and see if the power play is producing. Not so much. I look down here. The second line is not doing very well, though. So it's really the first line or nothing, which leads me with no goals and 4 assists on Hischier and 2 and 3 on Bratt. If I ran a mini stack, it'd be this one right here. I'm not that interested in picking up Hischier. Okay, over here on the Philadelphia side, 9 goals, 12 assists, 83 shots. Come on, this line's flying. 6 goals, 2 assists out of Konechny in the last 10 games. Really, really good price at 4,800. That price won't last long. So if you really wanted to run this game back, Hall, Bratt, and then run it back with Konechny. But I personally like to pair him up with Couturier. He's one of my favorites. So a little bit of cognitive bias there. Running the defensive pairing of Provorov and Gauspeer. Provorov's doing pretty well. 41 shots and blocks. He's a block specialist. That's a hard floor right there of, 4 blocks and shots in 10 games. So that's about 5.5, close to 6 points. That 6-point hard floor with another, say, 4 for goals and assists is giving you 10 for that 5,500, which is great. Okay? Scrolling down, Vegas, there's another one to be watching. 19 points between them, 21 points between these lines. Stack up either line. Run against the weaker Jets line. They're both bad. A plus-minus of 1, a plus-minus of 4. And they're not scoring as well. The second line's scoring better than the first, but the first line's dropped off. Blake Wheeler, no goals in his last 10 games. So I can really focus more on here. I think the chalky game is going to be taking both sides of this because everybody fell in love with Little, Ehlers, Perreault. You run down here to Biff. Biff's okay on that power play 1, but they're not really producing just yet. So again, this is fairly flat. Now, defensively, Vegas is not good. Even though their plus-minus looks strong, I've noticed that their lines have been giving up goals. It's just that they're scoring so much that they're offsetting it. Being that they're scoring so much, this is where your focus should be tonight. Let the idiots take Winnipeg. Come over here and grab some Vegas. Los Angeles Kings, Nashville Predators. Ugh. I don't like this game at all. I don't care if that's 13 goals and assists, points between them. I don't care. This is nasty. I don't even want any part of this game, to be honest with you. Tampa Bay and Calgary. Calgary's in an okay spot. They're producing some. Tampa Bay's giving up goals. Tampa Bay's not scoring a lot of goals yet. Dallas, another great spot. 21 on that top line. 21 points on that top line. 90 shots and blocks. Puts them firmly in play. And, of course, I love me some Klingberg. Klingberg, 34 shots and blocks, 9 assists. It's almost an assist per game. It's almost 8 points per game in a hard floor. And if you look back at his game log, he's getting you close to 15 points a game every game for like the last 20 games. This is pretty sustainable out of him. Add in another, say, 4 points or so, and you're looking at about a 12-point floor. That's pretty strong for a defenseman, especially when he's only going to cost you. Well, he's up. He was at 63. He's up to 6,800. Okay, it's worth watching, but if you ran him in there with Radulov's the cheaper of the three, you got yourself a nice little mini stack. You want to stack it all up, it's going to cost you. But they're in a good spot because they're playing Arizona. Arizona's got some negatives and some low numbers in that plus-minus category, so not a good line. Not a lot of production out of Arizona either, so that's going to bring these numbers down too. Colorado, Edmonton. Colorado just keeps scoring. Now, McKinnon's not playing tonight, but you got yourself 23. That's your league leader right there right now. 23 points on that line over the last 10 games. 72 for the activity and the shots and blocks. Come down over here to Edmonton, and you've got yourself some pretty weak sauce. Colorado, if they were running McKinnon, I'd be all over them tonight. They're not, so I might save Rantanen for a one-off. Landeskog's not terrible for the price. And I come down here and I look at some of this other value. Eric Johnson's been good for the price. Soderberg's been good for the price. Nemeth has been okay for the price because now look, 3,600. I'm looking for about 7 points. I get 3, which is about 4.5 or so right there. Now I'd like to see more production out of him. So I guess he's not as good as I thought he was a couple of days ago. It doesn't serve on any power play time. So never mind, scrap that. Not a great play down here unless you're really pairing it up with something, and there's not much to pair it up with other than maybe a Soderberg. But for 3,900, I'd like to see about 8 points out of him. 23 is about 3.2 plus 2 assists over the last 10. 16, 1.6, another 2, so we're at 5.5, and a goal for another couple of yeah, you're close to your 7. So for a punt, it's not the worst. Chicago, Vancouver, not great. Don't want anything to do with this game. So there's a quick slate breakdown for you, showing you the chart, how beautiful this thing is, how I am using it right now as I learn more and as I study the tutorial and as I dig into this bad boy. I'm going to learn even more of what got into the head of Jim when he decided to make this sheet for us over for our VIPs at dfsarmy.com. So again, become a VIP, use coupon code CHOP, CHOP. Give me a like and a subscribe in the video, like the article out on Twitter, go give that a read, and hopefully you're all set up for another big slate in NHL tonight. Take care, guys.